Welcome to the Matt Lancor podcast, where we dive deep into the stories and experiences of athletes and entrepreneurs who have embarked on their own hero's journey. Whether it's overcoming adversity, pushing through challenges, or achieving success, these individuals have all faced unique obstacles on their path to greatness. In each episode, we'll hear from a different guest as they share their personal journey and the lessons they've learned along the way. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired as we explore the hero's journey of some of the most remarkable individuals in sports and business. Welcome to the first episode of the Matt Lancor podcast, where we sit down with some of the most inspiring and driven individuals in the world. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Aubrey Mable, a force to be reckoned with. As a Hall of Fame Division I softball player at Bryant University, Aubrey has proven herself to be a fierce competitor and a leader on and off the field. But her talents don't stop there, as she is also a gifted musician and an entrepreneur, with a passion for living a beautiful life and making a positive impact on others. Get ready to be inspired as we delve into Aubrey's journey from her days on the softball field to her current pursuits and everything in between. Okay, welcome Aubrey Mable. We're here to discuss athletes, entrepreneurship, artists, and our kind of spiritual hero's journey. I'm trying to think of where we even start this. I mean, I think the obvious beginning is probably when we first met out in Denver, Colorado, many moons ago. I'm trying to think, do you remember what year that was? Was that?
I think it had to be 2017.
2017.
Because 2017 is when I moved back to Denver at the end of the year. Yeah. It was a long time ago, but I remember instantly being drawn to you and Jenna and your energy, and that I think you had also just started kombucha then.
Yeah, 2017, I was maybe 2 years into it, but I was still definitely making it in my mom's kitchen. It was still kind of like I don't want to call it a pipe dream, but it was something that was evolving. I was in the early stages of like manifestation. I had, to tie it into kind of some of our theme of the hero's journey, I feel like that was a time in my life where I had just started kind of answering that call to adventure, that I had received this kind of message from the universe that, hey, kombucha is not just for yogis and hippies, that it could potentially be for athletes too. So that had kind of set me off on that journey of just inner self-discovery and thinking like, how can I take this thing that athletes aren't aware of, that maybe we're not aware of the microbiome and the gut and probiotics and how that could help our performance and our recovery, and how can I bring some of that message to the world? So I think for some of our listeners, maybe a little bit of backstory that would help is, can you help us understand some of your athletic pedigree? I know I've done some internet research. You were a former Division I softball athlete. I believe you're also a Hall of Famer at the university that you attended.
This is true. Yes. So I was an athlete my whole life, and not even was, I would say I still consider myself an athlete, but just in different ways now. I'm not, part of an organized sports team. But growing up, I played softball and basketball, and actually baseball before softball. And I played golf in high school as well. Just sports was where I found the first version of my identity. And that's, I identified for the longest time as softball player, and played at the Division I level at a small school in Rhode Island called Bryant University. And yes, you are correct. I was inducted into the Hall of Fame there a couple of years ago. And after college, I actually coached at the Division I level for 3 years, still in Rhode Island at Providence College, and then back at Bryant. So athletics and mostly softball was all that I knew for, 15 years of my life. And once once that was done, or, once I left coaching, there was definitely this disconnect with myself of like, who am I without sports? And more specifically, like, who am I without softball? So found other ways to challenge myself in the physical and athletic space. I ran an Ironman, half Ironman in 2018.
I forgot about
And
that.
yeah, just continued to find new sports. I live in the mountains, so big snowboarder. I love hiking. I love mountain biking. I still road bike. Um, Really, I just love any activity that I can push myself and, continue that competitive aspect of what I love so much about athletics in general. And just instead of, competing on a team, I'm more so competing with myself these days. So,
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Thank you for that background, and certainly a
mhm.
well-rounded kind of athletic experience. To go back to when you were leaving the coaching and leaving the university, obviously that was like you were saying, like that was kind of all you knew for the longest time. What was that transition like, leaving this world that you were so familiar with? And were there any kind of, I don't know, mentors, or were there people that kind of allowed you to feel more comfortable stepping out into that kind of unknown? Because it could have been easier just to kind of stay in that world that was familiar for you.
No doubt. And I mean, the reason why I was able to feel empowered enough to leave was because I had started running my own business on the side. So while I was coaching, and actually while I was in my first year of coaching and while I was in grad school, I got involved with a network marketing company called Isogenics, and I was starting to coach people through um, a variety of nutrition products that I was using myself. And just, I kind of have a natural sales personality, you could say. So it came really naturally for me to start, I never thought that I would start my own business. And that's kind of ironic because I went to business school, and I was a liberal arts major at a business school, but I still had to take a strong foundation of business classes. But I never envisioned for myself starting my own business, which now being what it's been, I think 5 or 6 years since that happened. And, now I have started various businesses for myself, and then have been able to use the creative side of my brain along with the business side of my brain to kind of fuse those two together. But it was definitely a lot of fear around leaving, a secure job and a secure salary, although it wasn't much. I think I was making like $35,000 a year coaching, so it wasn't like I had this crazy salary that I was stepping away from, but I had enough belief in myself and enough belief that I could make it work regardless. And if it did, if this journey of entrepreneurship didn't work, I could always go back to security. But once, I'm sure, as you have found, once you have a taste of working for yourself and you get affirmed with making money, it's kind of like, whoa, why would I ever work for someone else again? So that was the start, and that was in 2017, I think, is when all of that started to kind of brew in my brain, and um, really started to become more of a reality the more attention I put on it.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. So it sounds like it was definitely a step into the unknown, but it was also similar in a way that you were still coaching people. You were
Mhm.
still helping to pull the best out of them. Or what would be your best definition of a coach? I mean, what are some of the favorite attributes, or maybe some of your favorite coaches and things that you pulled
Mm,
from that you enjoy?
Great question. I mean, I think a coach is someone who empowers you to believe that you can do it. And that, I mean, that can be applied into athletics, it can be applied to life, but I think um, it's someone who has patience and who understands at least for me, when I was coaching, I was constantly trying to understand the best way to connect with my players. And, not everyone thinks the same way and not everyone learns the same way. So also spending time to get to know people. And I think at the root of what a good coach is someone who is a good relationship builder and someone who, really takes the time to get to know you and to get to know how you operate and how you learn, and creates those conditions so that you can be in a place that is conducive to you being able to learn new skills.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Are you thinking of someone in particular? Is there a really memorable coach or someone that you look back on fondly? I mean, even just today, I got a text from one of my old high school football buddies talking about some memory he had randomly of our high school football coach. And it brought me back to this, I don't know, nostalgia of like being 16, 17 years old and having these people in my life that kind of really helped shape who I am and gave me an example, outside of my family, but gave me something to strive for and kind of held me accountable too.
Totally. I mean, growing up from the time I was like 12 to when I went to college, so 18. So for a solid chunk of my adolescence into my teen years, I played on a competitive softball team, and the coach of that team, his name was Joe, and he was a hardo. And I cried many times from him pushing me. And I would say when I think of good coaches, he's right at the top of that list, along with my dad. My dad was my coach from the time I could throw a baseball. So between the two of them, I think something that they did so beautifully was they balanced that line of like really pushing and digging into me, like in a way that sometimes felt pretty intense. But looking back, it was always with my best interest in mind, and always only ever to make me better, and was only ever rooted in love as well. So I think those are attributes of a good coach too, someone who knows how to push you to your boundaries, which at the end of the day are just, self-created anyways. So I feel so grateful that I got to have that experience, and also grateful that my dad was a huge part of me growing up. And not only in softball was he my coach, but in basketball, and he taught me how to golf. So I think there are a lot of coaching tendencies that still, I see within myself, and I see within literally my DNA, because that is what I was surrounded by my whole life and continue to be surrounded by. And I mean, even now he is coaching me in different ways, kind of coaching me how to be an adult, checking in on like, are you doing your taxes? Did you get your oil change? Like those kinds of things, where he just has he's just such a coach. And it's funny because I also see those tendencies within myself too, which is an interesting piece of getting older, and is a whole other tangent of like the ways in which we see our reflections of ourselves and our parents, and then kind of realize like, whoa, I am becoming my parents. This is kind of scary.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're our original coaches, right? I mean, they were the ones who brought us up, and we had to rely on them in a sense too. So there's this interesting like transition as we get older, where we were relying on our parents to basically keep us alive, and now we're transitioning into this different relationship with them where they can be more of a coach, and they can help bring us into adulthood. And I don't know, it sounds like you have a really like beautiful relationship with your father, as it's been kind of growing from an athletic coaching to now into more of an adult coaching. And you've had other influences, I'm sure, as well throughout the years, but I think those formative years, at least for me too, were really important. I think of my rugby coach that I had in high school, Coach Lynette Wismiller. She was a USA Eagle and then was our high school rugby coach. She taught me
Love
so
that.
many lessons. I mean, above and beyond what you learn on the field. You know, these people taught us things about character and value and accountability and discipline and things that I'm honestly just so grateful to have now in my business life, because I really feel like the lessons that I learned in sport almost directly apply now to life as an entrepreneur or life as a business owner. Can you think of anything that you learned in the sports world that you think helped you kind of make that transition from working for somebody else to working for yourself?
Absolutely. I think there's many parallels between being an athlete and being an entrepreneur. And I mean, even like starting with like habits and just like practice and like being on time and working hard and giving your all and being a good teammate. And there, I feel like all of those things prepared me to jump into entrepreneurship. And I think, you know, having a good coach is also at the root of that, because without a good coach, there's not that cultivation of those habits, and there's not the holding accountable, to showing up as your best self every day. So I feel like, yeah, everything I just mentioned there, like being on time, and if you're on time, you're late, is what my coach used to always say. So being punctual and being a good teammate, and especially if you're in business with someone else, like showing up and doing the things that you say you're going to do, and the way in which work shows up on the field, or whatever your medium is, court, field, the rink, I don't know what other surfaces you can play on, but just showing up and continuing to show up for yourself every day as an entrepreneur. Sometimes there's not anyone holding you accountable aside from yourself. So there is also this level of self accountability, that I learned from athletics, and whether that's, the coach giving you a lifting packet that you then have to go do over summer break or over winter break. And then, there's a fitness test when you come back. At that test, you could always tell who went home for Christmas and did the work, or who went home for Christmas and, loafed and watched Netflix the whole couple weeks that they were home. So I feel like that is probably the biggest thing that I took from sports into entrepreneurship, is truly like showing up for yourself and holding yourself accountable.
Yeah, totally. No, my mind is going to so many different memories of learning how to develop that self accountability and that self discipline in myself. And it's not easy. I mean, do you have any advice on how you work with when you were a coach, or even in your life now? What kind of advice do you give to people who are like, hey, I have this drive, I have this passion, but I don't know if I have the discipline, or I don't know if I have the willpower to do this. I think a good coach can help pull that out of you, but there's something that you kind of have to pull out of yourself. And it's something that when I've been in coaching positions, it can be a challenge to try and get that person to meet you halfway. I mean, what kind of advice do you give to people that are kind of in that transition period where maybe they're on the fence and they're not sure?
Totally. Well, I mean, I think something interesting that you said was like meeting someone halfway. And to me, it isn't a meeting halfway. It's it's not a 50-50 split. It's 100-100. And it's that,
Yeah.
if you really truly desire something, like say starting your own business, like you're either going to find a way to make it work or you're not. And there are a million excuses or reasons why it might not work, but there's also a million reasons why it might work. So I feel like I watch a lot of Shark Tank, and that's like my favorite TV show, because I love watching. I mean, like, you get all a range of entrepreneurs on that show, people who are maybe still making the kombucha in their mom's kitchen, and they're, looking for the money to create a facility where they can do it bigger. And there's also, people that show up there with really established businesses that are, maybe just there for the exposure or for whatnot. But I feel like in that show, you really see the grittiness of what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And some of these people have sold everything and have, sold their homes, and like this is their, they're really betting on themselves. And I feel like that is part of being an entrepreneur, is your belief in yourself has to outweigh the fear that you're going to fail. And I mean, I also take every failure as a learning experience. Like there really is no failing in entrepreneurship. It's just figuring out something that didn't work so that you're one step closer to finding the one thing that did.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for pushing back on me a little bit there, because I now can see what you mean, where there's a mindset that's different, where again, it's not, I'm going to meet halfway. It's, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to find a way to do it. And I think that is something that I've seen in successful entrepreneurs, is it only takes one reason for something to go wrong. And if you spend your time looking for reasons why it's going to go wrong, you're going to find one. But if you focus on what it is that you want and you find that reason for it to move forward, you end up moving forward, because that's the only thing that you're focusing on.
I mean, it's like a baby learning how to walk. Could you imagine if, babies stood up and fell down and they were like, oh, walking's not for me? Like, no, when we're babies learning how to walk, or really kids learning how to do anything, it takes us time after time after time after time of doing it. And then, I mean, as you mentioned, like our parents being our ultimate first coaches in life, like my parents didn't sit there and say, yeah, well, Aubrey's not going to walk, she just fell down. Like, but I feel like so many entrepreneurs are searching, for that reason to give up. And it's, oh, it didn't work, so I'm done. But I love that analogy of a baby walking, because seriously, could you imagine if we just gave up after we fell down for the first time? No, I mean, it really just takes figuring out what works for you, and it might not be the same thing that worked for someone else.
Yeah, no, and I think that's also maybe another lesson that comes from athletics, is like when you're learning a new skill, you're going to suck in the beginning. It's something that you're embracing. You're saying, yes, I know I'm going to suck if I'm trying this new technique or this new skill or this new sport. I mean, maybe you're trying a new sport, maybe you're transitioning into something new, but through the process of practice that you will get better. If you continue to show up and you continue to ask for help and you continue to look for mentorship, the only way is up. And it makes me think too, that how many entrepreneurs try to get it perfect before they even start, as opposed to an athlete who's maybe willing to just dive in because they know it's never going to be perfect when you start.
Totally. And just the acknowledgement of that piece alone of, I think that's what holds a lot of people back, is they wait until it's perfect. But as cliche as it sounds, like there might not be the perfect time to get started. And I mean, I feel like there would be like a marathon runner or maybe a first time marathon runner who just sits and just continues to read a book about marathon running, or like continues to read books on running technique, but they don't actually go out and put it into practice. And like, how long are you going to sit and read, marathons for dummies before you actually go out and start running? And it doesn't even have to be a run. You could start with a walk. You could start, walking a couple miles a day, and then slowly that's going to turn into, oh, maybe I can jog this. And then slowly that's going to turn into, oh, I could run this. So I feel like also one of the best things that you can do as an entrepreneur is just get started, figure it out while you're going. And something that I've learned from that is that is not a lot of people feel comfortable doing that. There are a lot of people that are waiting until it's perfect. And to them, I would just say, just do it, just go for it, and figure it out as you go.
Yeah, no, honestly, I would mirror that as one of my greatest pieces of advice for anybody who's thinking about entrepreneurship. Is it's like when you're sitting in the stands, the Coliseum stands, it's a lot easier to look down and judge the person that's in the Coliseum, but you don't know what it's like until you're in the Coliseum. And you have a plan. I mean, it's not, I don't know, it's not smart to just throw everything away and go start. You do want to have some kind of
Right,
plan,
right.
but
I'm not saying that,
you
but
can over plan for sure. No, I'm with you. There's definitely a period of time where you do need to get started. And to be honest, I was the person who didn't have a plan when I started. I didn't know what I was doing. I was making kombucha in my mom's kitchen. I wanted it different than the way it was currently being produced. And I just kind of started thinking like, hey, maybe there's other people like me. I'm just going to put it in a bottle and bring some to rugby practice and see what happens. But it was my willingness to just put myself out there. It was my willingness to try something new, which kind of brings me back to where we were at in our story. So you're transitioning from your coach, you started your small business. What was that like? I mean, did you have any doubts? Did you have any big wins that kind of gave you like a boost? Did you have any kind of, I don't know, like beginner's luck? Like what was that transition like, going from a full-time kind of safe and normal world to completely into the unknown?
it was absolutely terrifying. But I would say one of the things that made the biggest impact for me was having a supportive community that was cheering me on and also was doing the same thing. And I think it's really helpful to have mentors and to have, you know, the people that you're listening to and taking advice from, that they're actually in a place that you desire to be. Because it's really easy, as you said, to be the critic that's sitting in the stands. But if you're sitting in the stands, you have no idea what it's like to be in the arena. So Brene Brown has an incredible quote about that. I don't know it exactly, but that's, you know, kind of what the basis of it is. You know, if you're in the stands, I have no interest in what you have to say. If you're in the arena, that's a different story. Like, let's talk. Feedback is welcome. But I think truly having an incredible supportive community that was constantly celebrating me and encouraging me, and people that I could learn from, and, you know, getting plugged into books and podcasts. And of course, there hits a point where you're like, wow, how many more self-help books can I possibly read? Or like, how many more podcasts can I listen to? But I think it is important to surround yourself with people that are in a position that you desire to be in. So I, you know, of course, my parents were incredibly supportive and probably had their doubts, but they didn't really voice that to me. And of course, I had my doubts in myself, but a lot of that was combated with personal development work and, you know, continuing to dive into this belief system that I can do this, and that if it's not this, then what is it? And at the time, I didn't have an answer to that. So it just continued to blossom. And I think now the main business that I'm a part of is my band, Lady. And a lot of the skills that I learned from being in network marketing and running my own business there have transferred over. And it's pretty incredible to see the ways in which, like, each little stepping stone on this entrepreneurial journey has led me exactly where I am meant to be.
Yeah, no, I love hearing that. And I'd love to kind of bring that full circle later in the podcast of how some of those lessons transitioned into where you are now. I got two things. One is, it's on the top of my head, of those podcasts or of those books, you know, we don't want to send people down a road of not getting started on their journey, but
Yeah.
can you think of maybe one or two that you would recommend to somebody who's kind of ready to jump into that world?
Yeah, for sure. The first two books that popped right into my mind were The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's just like, it's the most basic concepts, but for some reason, when I read that through the eyes of like an entrepreneur, it just clicked and made so much sense. And then second, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, which, I mean, just talking about the hero's journey and, you know, kind of just someone meeting their destiny. it's an enchanting book, and if you haven't read it, highly recommend.
I was going to say The Alchemist is one of my all-time favorite books. And I love the Four Agreements. And I'm wondering, can you give the listeners kind of a short summary of what those four are? Because I think they're four ways to sort of live your life right in a way that kind of, it's like it allows you to be in alignment with the people around you, with the universe around you. It allows you to
Mhm.
have this, not second guessing yourself in a way. Or what are those four, and can you give us a quick summary on those?
Yeah, yeah. Well, here's my book report. The four are to be impeccable with your word, not to take anything personally, to always do your best, and not to make assumptions. So, again, very basic concepts. It's not new information, but be impeccable with your word. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about holding yourself accountable and like really having integrity with yourself. And if you say you're going to do something, that means you're going to do it, and not taking anything personally. When you can zoom out and kind of see everything that's happening around you with that lens, you just learn not to, you know, if you come back with a sassy comment to me, it's not, that's something that you're going through. It's not, I'm not taking that personally because I have my own stuff going on. So kind of just the fact that everything that other people say is a projection of their own reality and of their own experience. Don't make assumptions. I think it's pretty straightforward, but like find the space to like ask the questions that you need to ask, or clarify the things that you need to clarify, or, you know, oh, Matt didn't email me back for a week. He doesn't think my idea is good. No, maybe Matt's cat got ran over and he's been in the ER with his cat, and I don't know, he didn't have, your email wasn't the top of his mind, but he thinks you have a brilliant idea. You know, I think it could be really easy um to make assumptions and to self-doubt when it comes to the entrepreneurial journey. But just like, I would say, if of any of them, I mean, gosh, actually they're all, I'm like, if there was one I had to live by, but truly they're all fantastic. And then lastly, just the always do your best. Best is going to fluctuate from day to day. Maybe today I'm feeling 80% of my 100 in my health, but how can I still show up at 100% of that 80%? You know, so it's going to change from moment to moment, but if you can always show up and do your best that you have in that moment, you're golden.
Yeah, no, that's sage advice for any aspiring athlete or entrepreneur.
Hmm.
Um, were there any of those that you struggled with initially as you were reading the book, or one that came a little bit harder than the other? I think for me, I took a lot of things personally when I was younger, and I struggled like parsing out what was this other person's stuff and what was I pulling out of this person. Or it,
Hmm.
what that was, of those four, I think that was the most enlightening for me, to have this realization of, oh, that's a representation of that person. That's
Hmm.
the way they act towards me isn't always a representation of me.
Totally. And I would say the same. And I think that is consistent for a lot of people, that that's the hardest one to fully embody, because of course, like, we don't want, you know, when someone says something that hurts our feelings, yeah, like it hurts and it stings. And it can be really hard in that moment to shift directly into, okay, don't take it personally, don't take it personally. And like, I'm not saying that I embody these every day 100% to the fullest. Like, of course I still take things personally sometimes, and it's like, ooh, but it's a good reminder to shift back into the space of, oh, you know, I don't need to sit here and harp on that, because it wasn't a personal attack on me. This person is coming from a different place today. It's a projection of what they're going through. And if when I can't, when it's helpful to remember that when the, you know, those feelings of kind of the victim mentality or taking things personally come up.
Yeah, no, totally. That's what helped me, is learning how to shift it towards being curious like,
Hmm,
oh, that's a very interesting reaction to what I just said. I wonder
totally.
why. I wonder what is going on behind that. And maybe it's not my job to figure it out, but I can still kind of shift towards being curious, or maybe reflect on a time where I had a similar reaction to somebody
Mhm.
else and I was the person on the other side of it. And that kind of helps me shift into compassion. And again, I don't, I'm not a saint. I try my best, which is
Right,
one of the other agreements. I
right.
try my best to do these things, and I've also found that those things have been super fruitful for me, in both business and sport.
Awesome.
Now, getting on our hero's journey here, one of the things that comes along at some point in the journey is like maybe a big revelation or a death and rebirth of sorts. And it sounds like obviously there was a transition from what you were doing with Isogenics into music. Was that kind
Mhm.
of a rebirth of your entrepreneurism? How did that transition come about for you?
Well, I would say at the time that it was happening, it didn't feel like a death and rebirth. It just felt almost like a shift of attention and a shift of passion into this other place that I never really realized that I wanted to shift it until it was there. So um, I would say it was also I didn't have the ability to give both of them my full attention at the same time, and um, and what it boiled down to was music is what I am most passionate about, and music is something that's always been a big part of my life. And it took me going down that journey with network marketing and with Isogenics to fully believe in myself as an entrepreneur, to then shift that to, okay, I can take this entrepreneurial learning and knowledge that I have and combine it with the thing that I'm most passionate about, and like do it with someone that I deeply care about and is my best friend. And like, whoa, that's a really potent concoction right there. Um, and so, I mean, I still am involved with Isogenics very minimally. Like, it does not look like it did 4 or 5 years ago. Um, but without that piece of this journey, I wouldn't be where I am.
Totally. Which kind of brings me to, if memory serves me correctly, did you meet your musical partner, Kathleen, when you were doing the Ironman, right? Or was it in New
It
Zealand?
was,
Or I remember there's like a vague memory of how that
yeah,
story came about.
we did meet in New Zealand. It wasn't for the Ironman, but she did run the Ironman with me. We met studying abroad in college as juniors in college, and then just stayed in touch. And so there's also a beautiful piece of the whole, story of my entrepreneurial journey that has to do with just divine timing and the ways in which life leads us to these places that we didn't necessarily envision we were going. But once we get there, we're like, whoa, this is tight. I want to be here. So um, it was through a breakup that I landed in Kathleen's basement. And actually, that's said breakup with that partner is what led me to you. So there's that.
That's
But
right.
after that relationship ended, and I, called her and said, "Hey, can I live in your basement for a little? I'm going to convert this van. It won't be too long." That is when we started playing music together. And it happened so organically, and happened, we were writing songs that all of a sudden just the light bulb went off of, whoa, this is powerful and this is awesome. And we could do this. Like, yo, let's do this. So, um, yeah, I would say that it's all happened just in divine timing.
Yeah, no, totally. I can certainly resonate with the divine timing aspect of life. It's a little bit kind of spiritual or esoteric, or I feel like sometimes also when you're in that period when you're not feeling that divine timing, like what is it like when you're have to have that, I mean, maybe faith for lack of a better word, or
Mm,
just trust that you're going to find that clarity at some point. Or I think, you know, again, when we're going through these transformations or we're going through some of these rebirths of who we are, what did you have to hold on to at that point? You know, because we have our
mm.
self-discipline, we have our habits, we have our things that we've learned, but what was it for you that helped you get to that next thing?
Ooh, wow, that's a great question. I think it's a combination between like the self-belief and like really developing that as a muscle, treating it as a muscle. Um, but also for us, validation from others. And um, you know, in in something that's maybe product based or service based, like, I mean, it's like customer feedback, right? Like someone tastes the kombucha and they're like, wow, this is amazing. This has improved my performance in XYZ way. Similarly with the music, it's like, whoa, that song helped me through a breakup, or that song helped me through a really challenging time of mental health in my life, or whatever it is. There's this, I've actually learned this term, it's called the torus. And the torus is the circulation of energy that happens between, in this case with music, like between the musician and the audience, right? There's like this energy that we're giving to the audience, but there's also this audience that they're giving back to us. And whether that's in the form of like verbal validation, or you see someone crying, or you see someone laughing, or you just see someone like closing their eyes, swaying with the music, like there is this validation that happens in an energetic way, which is the like closest thing that I could find to the description of like what stage high or performance high feels like when you play a set and you come off the stage and you're just like, oh my god, what just happened? That was, transported me to a different universe, or like we were in such flow state, and it just all it's honestly like magical. And I think that is a piece of music. And I'm using music as the example because that's what my business is at the moment. And there's this magical thing that happens where everyone is taken to another place. And like maybe for you, it's like going to a trade show where over and over and over you hear people say like, wow, this kombucha is so good, or like, wow, my recovery time has decreased and I'm able to go harder and do it more often, or whatever it is. There's like a high that you get when you realize this idea and this business that you've created is actually making an impact.
Yeah, no, totally. I feel like I'm thinking of all the times that I've gone through these periods of, I don't want to say darkness, but you go through these periods without that validation. And then all of a sudden you get that one message, or you have that one show, or you have that feedback from somebody who doesn't even know you. And it kind of ignites that fire and that spark and gets you moving forward again. Um,
Totally. And it helps to keep the self-doubt at bay, because like regardless of how much development of self you've done to get to that place of belief, when that belief also comes from other people, it's game over. It's like I can do anything, I feel invincible.
yeah, no, totally. I think that's probably a great place to start wrapping it up here. So thank you for taking us through a piece of your hero's journey. I know
Mm.
there's probably dozens of chapters that we didn't get into that maybe in season 2 we can get you back
Yeah,
on later
season
in the
2
road.
time.
Now, at the end of our hero's journey, we kind of come back and we return to the normal world, a different person in a sense. You know, we've gone on this outward adventure. Sometimes it's an inward adventure simultaneously. Do you have any advice for people who are maybe hearing that call to adventure and they're trying to figure out, should I follow this? I don't know. Some people are telling me it's not a good idea, but they have this inner passion, this inner burning that's pulling them kind of into the unknown?
I think our bodies hold so much knowledge. And I think when you feel that pull, you have to follow it. And if not, it's only going to continue to sit there and get stronger. And I think so often we know what the right decision is, or, we know that we should take the leap and we should go for it. But that, there's just that voice, whether it's in our head or from, a parent or from a partner that is, um, is their own reflection of themselves, right? Like back to don't take anything personally. It's like their own reflection that maybe they don't have the belief in themselves that they could ever do it. So they're going to project that onto us. So, my advice goes back to just do it and listen. Your body knows the way, your heart knows the way. Just listen.
I love that. Listen to your gut.
Listen to your gut.
Listen to your
and make sure your gut is healthy so you can listen to it.
Yeah. Well, Aubrey Mable, thank you for joining me today. Athlete, entrepreneur, artist, and she's just getting started. I can't wait to continue and follow along on your next hero's journey. Do you have what is next for Aubrey Mable? I know there's music's going. I've seen you've been dabbling in some physical manifestation, working with your hands. I saw you at an art show the other day.
Yeah, I've been making some pottery, and it's funny. My partner, she is always, I'm always, concocting these new business ideas of like, I bake challah almost every Friday, and I'm like, ooh, maybe I could sell challah, like fresh baked, warm challah. I'll do challah deliveries all around Telluride. And she's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Not everything needs to be made into a business or like an entrepreneurial, like, can't you just do something for fun? And like, at first that's what pottery was for me. It was, making it for friends and giving it as gifts. But I'm like, it's a skill. It's a skill that I can use to produce income. To me, it just makes sense. So, what is next? Continuing to make pottery, continuing to make music. I just released an instrumental EP, kind of exploring the soundscape of meditative guitar layers and doing some solo stuff, but also very much a lot of new music on the way for the lady this year. And I think just continuing to follow the flow and follow the pull, follow my gut. And I don't even know that I know what's next after all of that.
I love that. Now, where can people find you? What's the best way to listen to some of your music, get a hold of some of your pottery? What's the best kind of websites or social media channels I can plug for people?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. You can follow along on Instagram at Aubrey_Mable, just my name. And that's, I have not gotten organized enough, nor do I have enough inventory to create a pottery website yet. So I'm usually just slinging stuff there. But you can listen to Lady wherever you find your music, and you'll have to search LVDY for that. So it's Lady, but with a V instead of an A. And you can find us anywhere you listen to your music, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, all the things. That's the plug.
Love that. We'll make sure that's available in the show notes. Awesome. Aubrey, thank you so much for coming today. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me. Bye, Matt.
And with that, we come to the end of our first episode with Aubrey Mable. It was an absolute pleasure having her on the show and sharing her insights and wisdom about life. I hope you all enjoyed listening to this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. As we sign off, I want to leave you with one of my favorite songs by Lady. The song is titled Spirit, and this song truly captures the essence of what we discussed today, about following your passions and never giving up on your dreams. So let this song be a reminder to all of you to keep pushing forward, to keep chasing your dreams, and to never lose sight of your spirit. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you again for another episode of the Matt Lancor podcast.
than my body. My spirit is bigger than my body. My spirit is bigger than my body. My spirit is bigger than my body. Feeling lost again. The circles never end. And these cells I have to shed are messing with my head. Ooh, 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 ooh. Well, I'm out of tune, in touch with who I once was, and new seeds must grow to reap what you sow. My spirit is bigger than my body. 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 Too gone for too long. 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 I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready to put my spirit back in my body. To put my spirit back in my body. To put my spirit back in my body.